You must remember this, a kiss is still a kiss, a sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still say I love you, on that you can rely. No matter what the future brings as time goes by.
Cumulus, what's up?
Puffy! Hey, just checking over the list for the big storm.
Oh, yeah, who's coming?
Well, the Wind Brothers, howling in Arctic. Snowflake.
Oh, I like her.
Sleet and hail.
Awesome! New York is gonna be so surprised.
What? With weather on the 10s on YNN, ain't nobody gonna be surprised.
Bummer, dude. So I hope you don't mind, but I invited...
Foggy.
Yeah.
If you have VHS, SVHS, 3/4, or Betamax videotape, 8, Super 8, or 16mm film, family pictures, or slides you'd like converted to DVDs, contact Huckabone Media Services. If you have audio cassettes or reel-to-reel tapes you'd like on CDs, give us a call. All of our work is performed locally and quickly at competitive prices. Huckabone Media Services, 20 years of experience with video and audio conversions.
I'm very pleased to be talking today with Roger Neel. Roger Neel has been in broadcast in the Binghamton area for a long, long time. Roger, thank you for coming over and talking to us.
Thank you.
today.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Now, let's start off by getting some personal biographical information from you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
I grew up in Western Pennsylvania.
Where?
Went to
Where are you from?
Slippery
originally?
Rock, Pennsylvania.
Slippery Rock.
Probably a lot of people have heard of the university, but very few know people that actually were in that area or went to high school there, which I went to high school. Grew up actually in the country. My dad had a poultry farm.
Oh.
And so I learned early, how tough it was for farming. We had neighbors who had dairy cattle, so I saw that part of it. We never actually had that, but I grew up around that. And I'll tell you, farmers have a difficult life. It's a wonderful life, but it's very difficult too. So I grew up there, went to Slippery Rock High School, then was lucky enough to go from there to Westminster College, and got a degree, a Bachelor of Arts degree in speech and broadcasting.
Oh.
And then started into the radio business from there a long time ago.
Okay. Now, I know that you played football at
Yes.
Westminster.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Sure, that was probably for me I would say I had two very fortunate breaks, at least early in my life. One was to be born to the parents and the family that I was born into. They were just phenomenal. My dad had a work ethic, a typical farming kind of guy who worked 7 days a week. My grandfather worked in Allegheny Ludlam Steel Mill, so I saw that part of it. My other grandfather was a conductor on the railroad in Pittsburgh. So we grew up in that kind of an environment where, hard work was just kind of expected. But I was lucky enough to go to Westminster and played football there. And we won a small college national championship in 1970, which for me was an incredible highlight. But along with that, I was very fortunate because I played with actually two head coaches, played for two head coaches and an assistant coach, all of whom now are in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Great.
So we were very fortunate to have our first coach was named Dr. Harold Burry, who to me was the greatest motivator I've ever met. He could take ordinary people and make them do things that you didn't even believe that you could do until he came along. He was fabulous.
What position did you play?
I was an offensive tackle, and played. We had an excellent teams. We had at one point the longest winning streak in the country, 24 consecutive games. But our coach, this is how good he was for up until 1996. Anybody who was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame had to be from major schools. They didn't take the smaller colleges. But in 1996, for the first time, anybody who was connected, be it coaching or playing in smaller colleges, were eligible to be enshrined in the College Football Hall of Fame. And so my coach, Dr. Harold Burry, went in along with people of the stature of Walter Payton and Terry Bradshaw. That shows you how good he was,
Yeah.
and he was tremendous. And then his chief assistant, when Dr. Burry retired, was my offensive line coach, then took over as the head coach. He broke all of Dr. Burry's records as far as wins. Our schools won 6 national championships, 5 since Dr. Burry took over. And in his last year of coaching with Dr. Burry, we finished national runner-up, and we're in the championship game again. So that was, for me, the most incredible experience that I could ever hope for. I mean, when you think of it, wrestling certainly is an individual sport. Those types of sports, that's different because it's you against everybody else. But for a team sport to win a national championship, whatever level, small college, major college, not many people get a chance to do that. So that really changed my life, to play for someone like that. He taught us that, kind of similar to the farm, you don't get anything without hard work. And we never were out work. We never, when you think in life how many times you go into anything, whether it's a job interview or a project, and you don't, it's not even in your mind that there's a chance to fail. And that's what he taught us. You don't ever think of that. So it was a great experience.
You graduated from Westminster, and what then?
Well, I was lucky enough also, in between I played baseball also, and one of my college teammates was Darryl Jones, who was drafted by the Yankees, went on to play a half a season in the major leagues with him. So I played ball with him, but then we both were broadcasting majors, so I became pretty good friends with him, close friends. But then I pursued the broadcasting career, and I guess like many of us, it takes certainly more now, which we can talk about later, of a break to get in. But then it was always at the right place at the right time, as it still is, to try to get your first commercial or professional broadcasting job. I remember I had sent out resumes all over the region.
But this is what you wanted to do.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
From an early age, when you grew up, and you can maybe reflect on this too, but in Western Pennsylvania and Central Pennsylvania, Bob Prince was the king. He was a tremendous broadcaster, but he was somebody as a kid that you grew up with because your family would have Pittsburgh Pirate. He was a Pittsburgh Pirate broadcaster for 25 years, and they would have the Pirate fans would have the radios on, and different than it is today. Back, certainly in the country, there was no air conditioning.
No.
So how did you cool off at night when it was 80 and 90 degrees? You'd go out and sit in the back porch.
No.
Or if you were in your house, you'd put the screens in, the windows up, and then people would have the ball game on. You could literally go up and down roads or streets in cities and never miss a pitch of a Pirate game because people had it on up and down the road, and they would be out on the porch with the radio on, portable radio plugged in, and the same inside. If the screens were up, you could hear it echo. We lived in a valley. My grandmother was hard of hearing, so if my grandfather and she had the game on, they'd crank that thing. You could sit on our porch, which was a couple hundred yards away, and hear the game without even having to have your own radio on. But I became interested. I just thought he was superb, and that was another, for me, wonderful moment early on. I got to meet him, and a good friend of mine did some advertising work with him, introduced me, and that was, for me, the highlight of my career, to meet him. But he showed me how he scored baseball games, talked to me about a whole lot of different things, and it was just a marvelous experience. But that's how I got inspired to get into broadcasting. And like most young people, when you're playing sports, you think, well, boy, I'd sure like to play pro baseball, for example. Well, everybody, or most people, want to do that. You get in a little bit later in life and realize that that's not going to be a possibility for most of us. How do you stay involved in sports? And I majored in broadcasting because I became, realistic as far as my chances to play professional athletics weren't going to be real good. So I wanted to stay involved with athletics, and I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, as in Bob Prince. So that's how I really became interested in that. And, I started out with a break, unfortunate for a worker, but for me it was the way I got into commercial broadcasting, and that was I'd gone to a radio station in Grove City, Pennsylvania, one of my stops on dropping off resumes and audition tapes and the whole thing, and met a very nice program director, took time to talk to me and everything, and he said, it's nice that you have experience, I know your college very well, you're only like 20 miles away from here, great broadcasting program, but we don't have anything. So about 2 days later, actually the next day, I got a call at my house, and they said, we've had an unfortunate situation. Our midday show host had a death in his family. His father passed away. We need someone to fill in for probably a week till he takes care of the personal details that he had to take care of. So it now means that we have an opening for those 5 days. You had talked to us about utilizing the same equipment in my college station as they had, so they didn't have to show me how to use things, a couple buttons here and there, but it was the same basic thing. And so he said, can you come in later today? I said, yeah, on the way. So unfortunately, you know, somebody had personal misfortune, but that's how I got involved in it. And then from there I was able to show that I could do the things that they wanted, and then I got some more hours. About a month after I got hired there, I got hired by another station in, it was called Mercer Sharon, Pennsylvania, WWIZ. It was in the country between the two. And you would drive out this lane of about maybe a half mile into nowhere in a big cow pasture, and there was this radio station with a big antenna and tower, you know, which you'd see like in a book somewhere. So I worked part-time. I would work 3 nights at WEDA in Grove City, and that was about 50 minutes for me to get from that station to the station in Mercer Sharon. I would get off the air at 9 o'clock there, drive 50 minutes and be on the air at 10 o'clock at the next location, and work overnight till 5 in the morning.
Oh, great. And
then drive back to my home, which was about an hour or so back, and stay there and do it all over again. I recall playing baseball in a senior league, and I was on the air in Grove City, so I played a game in, I did a daytime shift in Grove City, got in my car, drove 60 miles south to play in the game, still in my uniform, got back in the car, drove 60 miles the other way, plus another 20 to get to this other station to be on the air at 11 o'clock, and it worked.
So you've been doing this all your life then?
Well, sometimes it seems like longer than that, you know, but it's been a long time. I started.
You've been working long hours.
1973.
That was in when, 70?
1973 was first jobs, yeah.
If you have VHS, SVHS, 3/4, or Betamax videotape, 8, Super 8, or 16 millimeter film, family pictures, or slides you'd like converted to DVDs, contact Huckabone Media Services. If you have audio cassettes or reel-to-reel tapes you'd like on CDs, give us a call. All of our work is performed locally and quickly at competitive prices. Huckabone Media Services, 20 years of experience with video and audio conversions.
It takes vision to keep a city growing, and people like Kevin from our local planning department. He makes ideas happen, with a little help. Kevin came to Time Warner Cable Business Class for advice and a partner. Together we set up dedicated internet access and cloud services. Now it's easier for him to share large files and stay connected to his team. Planning for the future is Kevin's business. I'm proud he's made it my business too.
How did you then get into your next position?
Right. I put out resumes all over, of course. Now, here's one thing that I didn't realize, which I learned certainly pretty quickly, and that was, I thought in order to get noticed by stations, and I would send them out to big stations like KDKA, WTA in Pittsburgh, which are powerhouses, and of course you'd get these notices. If you got anything back, it would be, thanks, but we don't think we have anything available for your qualifications. Which was saying you're no good, you know, basically. So I would send all these out, but what I didn't realize is I thought, well, you know, if I can really prove, not just say, but I can prove that I'm working for a radio station currently, that's going to help my credibility. So I got a bunch of stationery from from the station WWIZ, and I would write my things, hi, I'm so-and-so, you know, and here's my resume, blah, blah, blah. Well, what they would do then is they would send the rejection letters back to that radio station. Oh! So I'd give it a night, I'd have 5 letters in the box, and all things, thanks, but no thanks. But the owner came in one day and he said, see, you get a lot of mail in the mail. I said, yeah. You know, and he just laughed. He knew what was going on. Yeah. But it was, I learned fast, it's probably not the wisest thing to send applications and resumes out with your current letterhead on. Yeah, it was not a good idea.
But it is easier to get a job when you have a job.
Absolutely. And what happened was I had applied at WJAC in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and they called me down for an interview. I'd never been there. They called me for an interview, and about maybe 2 weeks after that, they called and said, you know, we do have a position open. Here's what we can offer you, and would you be interested? And I said, yes. So amazingly, as you said, you know, you have to have a job to have another one. I got a call later that day from the owner of the station in Mercer Sharon, Pennsylvania, who said, hey, we would like to make you full-time. And I said, I was just going to call you and tell you I've gotten this offer for a full-time job at a bigger station, and I wanted to go do that. But that's how it happens oftentimes. You get no, not even a chance. And then
So you were, what, a year out of college at that time?
Not even that.
No?
I graduated in June and got the job in August.
Great.
In Johnstown. Yeah,
So what were your duties then in Johnstown?
Well, they hired me as, we had, WJAC TV is a huge television station, but they had at the time, and since it's all divested, but they had an AM station, 850 WJAC, and then they had an FM station too. The FM was 57,000 watts stereo. Could be heard up on Interstate 80. It boomed, but they played beautiful music like many FMs did back in the early 70s, and it was kind of like they have this incredible signal, but what do you do with it? Well, they did what most did, which in our area, WQYT did. They played, doctor's office music and background music and living strings and everything. But this was way before automation. So they had me do a 7-hour shift on the FM station, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day, and play albums and album cuts of beautiful music and all these different songs. And occasionally we could track 2 or 3 songs in a row, but for the most part you'd cue them, and it was like a regular DJ music show, only it was beautiful music. And then part of the shift was that you would do on the 6th day, because pretty much everybody worked a 6th day, Saturdays you would get to do an AM shift on WJC AM, which was a very powerful station too. And you could play contemporary music, So that was what I wanted to do. And I remember I was so happy to get the job, but I remember sitting in the studio playing this quiet island music and almost crying. I'd be so depressed. I'd say, I can't take this. This stuff is like so depressing, quiet type stuff and background music. But you get through it, and then you get a chance to go and do your young stuff music over on the AM. I had a good time with that.
Yeah. And then at WJAC is when you got into sports.
Sure.
How did that happen?
Well, I'd done a little bit of high school football in Grove City, but I played and then made it known to everybody that I was involved with that I wanted to get into sports. That was my goal. So WJAC had a hockey announcer, Frank Dell, who had done hockey games for at least 20 years there and was a legend. He did the morning show. You talk about work, the radio stations were not union, but the TV was. And you may recall the days when TV stations had a booth announcer, and that's what he did, and every hour he would give a legal ID. Serving millions atop the Alleghenies. This is WJAC Television, Johnstown, Pennsylvania. That was it. And occasionally he would do, maybe if a weather person was off, he might do the 6 o'clock weather, but 90% of his job was giving these hourly IDs.
He sits for an hour and do an ID.
Yeah, and we would like, he got paid well at that time because it was a union wage. And he would work 7 days a week. He worked Monday through Friday in radio, and then he would work Saturday and Sunday as his booth announcer and do that. And I talked to him about it because in between, our radio stations were on the 2nd floor, TV was on the 1st floor. And you could look down sometimes through your curtain in your radio station and look at the guys down in TV and see if they were recording. You usually couldn't, sometimes you could see the set up so you could see a live shot, but most of the time it was recorded interviews with some sports celebrity or something in there, But I would see him and I'd say, boy, you have nothing to do now for 50 minutes. He'd laugh and he'd say, it's a lot harder than you think because you couldn't miss one of those.
Right.
And the thing was, I think it was set up where if you missed one, you were written up, and the second time you were fired. So, he would say, I can't believe you're going to get paid to do this, like 1 minute of time every hour. But that's what they had. It wasn't automated. You had to have that. And so it was much more difficult than being busy because if you got distracted and were reading the paper and all of a sudden you look up, I lost my time, you're in danger of being fired. But he also did all the Johnstown Jets hockey games. He did those for a number of years, and it got to the point where he was going to be much better off doing the TV booth announcing than running around doing minor league hockey. So the year before I got there, he had told them this is going to be my last year to broadcast hockey. So they actually had another young guy on staff who sat with him the last game or two and got trained to do it. He was supposed to do hockey. Now, since I played football in college, they had some football games that I could work in the fall on WJAC. So I did high school football up until for about a month or so, till they said, our guy that's supposed to do hockey just got a TV job. So he's going to move downstairs and be the weatherman on TV. That was 10 days before the season. So they came to me the next day and said, we want you to do pro hockey. And I said, well, I never broadcast hockey. And they said, well, we want you to do it. We can't pay enough to hire somebody to come in. We need someone who can do it like now. And here's the deal. You either do it or we'll get someone to do all the sports and you won't do football or basketball, you just won't do it. I said, well, now, I've already been doing some of the sports. I got a taste for it. I was loving it. Now you're going to tell me you're going to take it away unless I do pro hockey. So I got thrown into the fray with that right off the bat. And I'll never forget my program director. I said, I never did pro hockey before. He said, I'll be with you every step of the way. So we go down the first night, and we have a big unit set up in the War Memorial that gets the signal back like a direct loop to the radio station. So he came in, and he said, here's how you turn this on. Well before the game, turns it on. And he said, you all set? And I said, I guess. He said, well, if you need help, I'm over in that section across the way. Just wave to me and I'll come over. And he left me. Oh!
You've never done a hockey game?
Never done a hockey game.
Wow.
It was somewhere between awful and bad. And probably transcended that.
You don't have a tape of it, do you?
I hope not. I hope not. But I worked with a guy, too, who had helped out Frank for, I guess, several years, keeping stats or whatever. And he loved it. He was my color commentator. He said, you know what my goal is? And I said, what's that? He said, I want to be the Tony Kubek of hockey.
Oh, there you go.
I went, oh, okay. So trying to help me, knowing I was the greenhorn, he said, you can't talk for 3 hours straight without something to drink, so let me get you a Pepsi. He kept bringing me these Pepsis. You get a cup of them, Well, if you've ever tried to talk continuously for 3 hours, drinking a soda is not the best thing because you start to have a belching problem. Right? So here you are talking as fast as you can. You're mixed up as heck. You're nervous as heck. And all you're doing is go down the right wing. And that when I said, no more soda. No more soda.
Well, but you knew hockey before.
I knew it, but not quite frankly enough to do it.
Right.
I got the job because, quite frankly, they couldn't find anybody else who would do it that cheaply. That's pretty much what it was.
Isn't that all the way?
And I wanted to... I wanted to stay in sports.
Yeah.
I never really had considered hockey because I wanted to do baseball and football or basketball.
Did you memorize the players? Or?
Yeah, as much as I could, but it even goes deeper than that because they had training camp in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Not even there. Oh. Now, my station was very much a stickler about getting off to do things. You had to put your exact time in. So the hockey team was in training camp. They'd come back to practice one day before the season. And I went to my boss and I said, I need to go to this practice because I want to see these guys and do some homework and stuff. And he said, well, what time's the practice? And I said, it was like 10 o'clock. You're on the air. I said, I know, but I need, he said, well, you can't get off the air for that. You don't have enough time off coming to even get hours off. And I said, I can't go. He said, no, you can do what you want after you're off the air, but that doesn't do me any good. Oh. So the general manager, John Mitchell, who was featured in Slapshot, who I later became very good friends with, but I go down later in the day and explain to him, no, you have to remember I'm green. I don't, here I am. And I'm walking in following a legend in that area, Frank Dell. They love the guy. So immediately I walk in, it's not even the guy who they thought was going to replace him, it's somebody else. And the idea seemed to be I took Frank's job. I wasn't even in town when Frank decided not to do it. But, so I said, like I would do for other sports, I said, I met the general manager, and he said, well, you should have been in practice today. And I said, I couldn't get off work. That didn't please him, which I understand. Now I said, can I get a program so I can memorize the numbers? He said, son, we don't just give those away. I said, well, I'll pay whatever it is. He said, we don't have them yet. You have to get them game day, which is the next day. Okay. So I had to wait until they began to sell programs
So you could buy a
that
program.
night to get a program, and I was too dumb to realize all I needed was a roster sheet.
Oh,
I asked
right.
for the whole program.
Right.
I didn't know, because every other event I've been to, you got a program.
Right.
So I learned, but son, we don't give those away. So I had to wait till they opened the gates to get. It was the whole string of events. It was an incredible situation to be put into. I sure wouldn't recommend it as a way to start out in broadcasting, but you have to seize a moment, and I
Right.
worked as hard as I could. I was very fortunate. I actually, a friend of mine from college, I'd never lived in Johnstown before, but a friend of mine in college, her father was a president of a bank. He lined me up with a place to stay, which happened to also rent rooms to the hockey players. So I had the best tutoring possible from pro players. And you know, I never forgot that the players were very kind to me. They gave me a lot of insight, a lot of background, a lot of things to look for that, quite frankly, nobody else even thought of. I mean, they just dumped me. My station dumped me. The general manager at the time get me out of the way, and they helped me. So I never forgot that. I've always had a special place in my heart for what they did for me, because they helped me a lot.
Cumulus, what's up?
Puffy! Hey, just checking over the list for the big storm.
Oh yeah, who's coming?
Well, the Wind Brothers, Howling in Arctic. Snowflake,
Oh, I like her.
Sleet and Hail.
Awesome! New York is gonna be so surprised.
What? With weather on the 10s on YNN, ain't nobody gonna be surprised.
Bummer, dude. So I hope you don't mind, but I invited...
Foggy.
Yeah.
If you have VHS, SVHS, 3/4, or Betamax videotape, 8, Super 8, or 16 millimeter film, family pictures, or slides you'd like converted to DVDs, contact Huckabone Media Services. If you have audio cassettes or reel-to-reel tapes you'd like on CDs, give us a call. All of our work is performed locally and quickly at competitive prices. Huckabone Media Services, 20 years of experience with video and audio conversions.
So now you're in Johnstown. How did you come to Binghamton?
Well,
I'm assuming you came here from Johnstown.
I did. I did pro hockey for 4 years, and you know, I think I certainly improved with it. I wouldn't, however measure that was, worked out. But what happened was, of course, the big flood in the mid-'70s down there that destroyed the ice making equipment at the War Memorial, and they had at that point the first season without professional hockey because they had no ice surface to use. So the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown, which was a branch but 4-year school of the major school Pitt, was a Division II program in basketball. And as it turned out, luck again, a connection that I had at Westminster, who was the best friend of one of my second head coach, was a major car dealer in that area, and he was also on the board of the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. So hockey goes out, we have no hockey. I'm doing high school football in the fall, and they decide that they want to broadcast all the Pitt Johnstown basketball games. Can we do it? And he says, well, I don't want anybody else to sponsor the broadcast, I'll sponsor the whole thing.
Oh.
So I got to work for, to publicize his dealership, but a lot of it was due to the fact that he was a Westminster alum who was trying to help me out too. So that worked out great, and he bought all the advertising. We opened up a brand new, beautiful field house there, and they were tremendous. I really enjoyed working the one season. The ice making equipment was still wrecked. They hadn't gotten everything repaired for the next season, so we were going to be without hockey for a second year. We were all set. They had made the announcement that we're going to broadcast Pitt Johnstown basketball again. And after that had occurred, what happened here in Binghamton was that Jay Roberts, who was the original voice of the Broom Dusters, decided to leave and pursue a job in Maryland. And this was probably mid to late September. It was only a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks before hockey season. Kitty Bocock was the general manager of WNBF, and as it was when I worked, the radio station had the broadcast rights for the games. Now, in order to get hired, you had to be approved obviously by the radio station because that's who you work for, but also by the hockey club. So they had the right of refusal. If they didn't want the person the radio station wanted, they could veto that and hire somebody that they wanted or somebody else or however it worked out. But anyhow, Kitty Wilcox said to Jay, you know, you're leaving at a tough time. Do you have any suggestions on someone who could come in and do hockey? Because we don't have much time to go searching. And he said, you know, there is a guy who worked in Johnstown and doesn't have a team to work for now because of the flood and they have no team. And she said, well, do you think he would consider moving to Binghamton? He said, I don't know, but he's single. And last I knew, you know, didn't have a home or anything invested there, so maybe he could. So I'm doing commercials one day in the production room, and our production manager buzzes inside the room, and he said, you have a call from a Miss Kitty. And I said, yeah, sure I do, and I'm a millionaire too, ha ha. And he said, no, this woman. So I said, come on. So I thought one of the guys was playing a trick on me. So I went out, picked up the phone, and it sure wasn't enough. It was, hi, how are you? Because Kitty was from West Virginia, had a great, wonderful accent, and I thought, you have to be kidding me. She said, this is Miss Kitty. She said, would you like to come do pro hockey in Binghamton for the Broom Dusters? And I was just like, I didn't know what to say, you know, and I went to work at my other job. And she said, but obviously the season is starting soon. We would love to have you. You've been recommended by Jay Roberts, and we would love to talk to you about the position. I said, well, yeah, but I mean, you know, when do you want to see me? She said, how about this weekend? Okay. So I drove up, and she took me out to the camp, as a matter of fact, and we had a nice meeting and introduced me to some of the people at the station, and it worked out. But Jacques Caron was the general manager of the hockey team, and he had to okay the hiring. So I had brought a tape with me, and she had to play the tape for him. He okayed it, she okayed it, and that's how I got here. But again, a string of luck, which just about everybody needs as far as a road to get to that destination.
Well, and you had people that liked you too.
Well, you know, it was great, and Jay, you know, Jay and I used to talk a lot because when you go into other cities and other arenas, usually the other broadcaster's your best friend.
Sure.
You know, equipment breaks.
Yeah.
You don't have an engineer there or other equipment. You go to see him. Do you have an extra X plug or whatever? You know, and how do you say this guy's name? And did you encounter this in Utica or something? You know, Mohawk Valley. So you talk about a lot of stuff, and you know, we became friendly. He was a great guy, had a fabulous voice, and so I was just lucky that he remembered me and put that word in. Had he not, I wouldn't be doing the show with you.
Yeah. And so you came in. That was 1979,
78. 1978 with the Broom
78,
Dusters. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did 2 years with the Broom Dusters in the American. It was after they moved to the American Hockey League. But I mean, I'd been in here a number of times broadcasting for Johnstown, so I was quite familiar with Binghamton and the Broom Dusters, and I always thought, wow, this would be a great place to broadcast games because at that time the arena was jammed.
Yeah.
Jammed. And we would come in here, unlike Johnstown or other places which were more of a manufacturing, mill, mining area, which is fine. But unlike here, we come in for a Sunday game, people would be in three-piece suits. You know, women would be all dressed up, and this is just a whole different atmosphere, and the place would be jammed. And I thought, wow. And I met a gentleman who used to sit with his son in front of the visitor's booth, and he liked what I did. He could obviously hear me doing the game, and he got me a Dusters jersey with my name on it. And before one game, gave it to me. I thought, wow, this is awfully nice. You know, and I thought, what a great place. So when it worked out, I thought this is a wonderful opportunity.
So you already had a Dusters jacket before you came here?
A sweatshirt, yeah.
Yeah,
Wasn't it nice? But the people were just phenomenal.
Well, and how long then did you work for the hockey?
I did 2 years with the Broom Dusters, and then the franchise changed to the Hartford Whalers organization. So I worked 6 more years for them. So a total of 8 years with the hockey club.
And why did you end your association?
Well, it wasn't my choice. Basically, what happened was that our radio station and our company, about that time in the mid-'80s, TalkNet radio was becoming popular. And the prime host of that was Bruce Williams. He was a very popular evening personality, talked a lot about finance and money and all these things. But our corporate program director based in Des Moines said, you got to get this Bruce Williams on. And of course his time slot was 7 to 10 p.m. which was the time slot of about 80 to 90% of the hockey games. So by that point, you know, I won't say the interest had gone down, but it was becoming a more difficult sell. It wasn't the first few years, you know, everybody wanted to be associated with it. So sales had gone down a little bit. And our bosses were looking at a way to keep me, or whoever was involved, in the studio more, and not go out on road trips and that type of thing. So that's how that kind of evolved, where he said, we don't want you to carry pro hockey anymore, carry this syndicated network show, because Bruce Williams is killing across the country. He did very well. But Bruce Williams cost me the hockey job. That's what he did. So I had the choice that the hockey club said that they would hire me, but it turned out, just with benefits and some time that I already had in there, that I decided to try to do some freelance stuff away from the radio station and stay involved in hockey, but not necessarily work. You know, the minors are wonderful. Minor leagues are fabulous. You meet wonderful people, but again, as a profession, you're probably not going to make a living just doing that. Right. So, and for that matter, radio's the same way. It's not a lot different. But so I decided to stay with the radio station, and about 2 or 3 months after that, I was named program director, and then everything else kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah. Why have you stayed in this market for all these years?
Well, you know, I think it was probably like a lot of young guys when I came to town. I thought, wow, you know, I really had hoped to someday work in the National Hockey League. And I'd seen a lot of people over the years that I worked around in different cities get that chance. It didn't happen for me. And so once I got involved, not only in hockey but in other sports, it just kind of took off, where you began to get roots. I married somebody from Endicott. Very lucky to have married her. And so all those things kind of snowballed into this became home.
Wow.
And then from there, I got a chance to work with the baseball team as the stadium announcer for 12 seasons when they started back in 1992. And of course, with Binghamton University now, our 15th year of broadcasting men's basketball for me, the university has been phenomenal. I always, back from the days that I grew up watching Slippery Rock University athletics, and to me as a kid in grade school or junior high, those were the stars, you know. And we'd have sometimes student teachers who taught in our classes who were football players at the university, so they were like, wow, he's actually, we get to go see him play on Saturday, you know. So I love being around university athletics, and then to once our hockey ties were broken, once the university decided to go Division II and then Division I, we had a general manager named Chuck Jewell who said, why don't we carry all the games instead of just home games? Because we carried a few at the Division III level, but never a full schedule. I said, do you mean you would let me get out of the station to go travel and do no, it's not a huge schedule, but it is some travel. And he said, yeah, why not? I said, I'm in. Yeah. And that's how it started. So I was quite lucky with that. And of course, it's taken off, and it's been a great relationship. So all those things, I think, just you kind of get attached to the area. The area's been wonderful to me, and I've enjoyed it very much.
If you have VHS, SVHS, 3/4, or Betamax videotape, 8, Super 8, or 16 millimeter film, family pictures, or slides you'd like converted to DVDs, contact Huckabone Media Services. If you have audio cassettes or reel-to-reel tapes you'd like on CDs, give us a call. All of our work is performed locally and quickly at competitive prices. Huckabone Media Services, 20 years of experience with video and audio conversions.
It takes vision to keep a city growing, and people like Kevin from our local planning department. He makes ideas happen, with a little help. Kevin came to Time Warner Cable Business Class for advice and a partner. Together we set up dedicated internet access and cloud services. Now it's easier for him to share large files and stay connected to his team. Planning for the future is Kevin's business. I'm proud he's made it my business too.
Let me ask you about your typical workday. Mm-hmm. It seems that you work about 26, 28 hours a day. What is your workday?
It varies. For the past dozen years or so now, I've done the morning show, but I was associated with the morning show. Before that, we did morning sports for a long time, so I was up early. But I've kind of, over the years, kind of been a hybrid of different positions. Mm-hmm. So I do the morning show. I'm the program director for the 2 a.m. stations, WWF, WYOS, ESPN affiliate, and then do sports at night. So it's kind of like wearing 3 hats. And so it's quite involved. It is quite time consuming.
So what time do you get up in the morning?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
And so then you're at the radio station until what, 5 in the afternoon?
That's probably a good day.
A good
Some
day.
days a little bit longer. It all depends.
But then you have in the evening now basketball,
Right.
and sometimes it's on the road.
Right.
So you may get back at what, 2 o'clock in the morning,
Maybe 3 or 4.
3 or 4, and then you're back in at the station, right? And you've been doing this now for decades.
Right. Well, certainly for when I did hockey, it was a different situation because I was a utility announcer. So I would get the chance to sleep if we got in 3, 4, or 5 in the morning, maybe till midday, and then come in and I'd work the rest of the day. But I wasn't on the air all the time. I was a fill-in guy. Yeah. Once you become host of the morning show, it's a lot more responsibility.
Yeah.
And what I've tried to do is make it doable for everybody involved, and not take any more time off than I have to. So I try to be there when I can. I'm lucky enough to have some great guys who fill in, but 4 o'clock in the morning is tough on anybody, so I try not to put that on them. But there have been some times when I been sweating it to get in like at 4:30 or 5 during snowy days, and hope I don't have to make that call to get someone in there.
Roger, talk a little bit, if you would, about over the years the equipment that you've used to and how you've done the broadcast. You said in Johnstown it had a big, a board of some sort that you'd have to carry into the place.
Well, it stayed there,
Uh-huh.
and then we would use just a dial phone line in cities, and we traveled. But for the home hookup, it was like a direct wired circuit that went right back to the studio. But yeah, it's changed a lot.
So what did you take when you traveled, when you first got here?
First got here, it was all telephone hookup equipment.
So you took a little amplifier along, or a big amplifier or something?
A mixer, your microphones, headset, and anything you could use to play back a cassette recording that you could hear of a coach's interview or player interview for intermission or whatever. You do that, and then a phone hookup you could just patch into a regular phone line and then make the call, or have the station call you and get hooked up.
You take a telephone, take the speaker part up, put the alligator clips in there?
We did that, sure. That was at one time we did that.
And how has that changed now over the years?
Yeah, we also have a phone that our engineers made where you could put a small mini jack or quarter-inch whatever jack into the side of the phone, and then have to unscrew the mouthpiece, to hook up. So we did it both ways.
Yeah.
But that was a little more convenient than taking the mouthpiece off. Now it's everything from an Ethernet direct computer line link that we can use to still, on occasion, having to go back and use the regular phone line, depending on what you have at a visiting school. At the university, we've got the Ethernet to make it work as well as you can. That can give you great quality. We also, on some occasions, use a wireless hookup that is crystal clear quality also, but as with anything wireless, you have to have the proper signal, and some of the major gymnasiums, you've got to battle, all kinds of metal to go through and everything, so it doesn't always get the best signal. But so there's a variety. It's kind of gotten down to however you can get everything on is what you do.
What changes have you noticed, if any, in Binghamton University going to Division I?
Well, I think still the striving for athletic excellence is there, and I think that going to Division I has opened up an awful lot of opportunities to showcase the school. For example, playing on the move from Division II to 1, a chance to play at the University of North Carolina and almost beat them. They lost by 1 point. That made headlines across the nation. And if Binghamton could have won on a late second shot, as much of the headlines that it took up on ESPN and major sports shows as it was coming within 1 point of a major power, if Binghamton would have won that, it would have been unbelievable. But I know I met a person who was at one time the PR director of Binghamton's hockey team, who came here because he and his wife went to North Carolina and saw the game. And they became intrigued by Binghamton University, this school that nobody, certainly in major college basketball, had heard of, almost beating a powerhouse in North Carolina. They went back to their home and said she was looking for a graduate program in maybe business, whatever it was. Went back, did research on Binghamton University, found out it was a perfect fit. And so that alone, just in my experience, brought two people to the community. One who got her graduate degree here, another who worked several years in business in the area, and that's just that occasion. So I think that has gotten a ton more exposure and has certainly broadened the reach of the university countrywide.
The scandal over the past year or so, what kind of an effect do you think that's going to have on the future of BU athletics?
Well, I think it was so unfortunate, certainly on the heels of going to the NCAA tournament and winning the America East Championship. And not only was that unfortunate, but the caliber athletically of the team that it was returning could have done better. So that was horribly unfortunate at that time. I think that in the long run, with a new coach in now, new athletic director and everything, that I think that all sights are set forward, and I think that overall the university program will be stronger because now they're going to be doubly attentive to doing everything as much as possible beyond reproach. So certainly a major hit, but a lot of unfortunate things, and I think that it just hurt a lot of people who had put a lot of faith in that to have that happen.
But you wouldn't envision going back out of Division One.
I don't think so. I mean, they've got a beautiful facility that seats over 5,000. Have for years led the America East in attendance, shown that they can compete not just in basketball but in all sports. Rory Quiller was an NCAA pole vault champion. They have kids that are getting drafted by professional baseball teams out of the baseball program. Tennis has played some of the top schools in the country. Wrestling, nationally ranked. So I can't envision. I mean, they've shown that they belong there, and I really can't envision them wanting to or having that idea to go back to a Division III situation where again you're looking at 400 or 500 people at a basketball game and that type of thing. I don't. You could never say never, but I would be shocked if that would happen. I think they've made way too much progress to go back to that. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just an evolution that's transpired to Division I.
What advice would you have to give to a young person, that 14-year-old that's been sitting at home and heard you say "score"? Did you? By the way, was that original with you, or did you pick that up from somebody else?
It was to go back to my first year when I did pro hockey. I had people, obviously, being the greenhorn that I was, who criticized pretty much everything I did.
Of course.
Especially after a guy that had been there 20 years. Because, as you well know, in broadcasting, when you follow somebody who's considered a legend and that popular over 20 years, it doesn't really matter why you're following him. I mean, in this case, he retired and it was his doing. But the idea is that memory lingers there. So the first guy in is the one that takes the pounding.
Sure.
The second guy either is, God, he's better than the other guy that was just here. He might not be Frank, but he's still better than the other guy. So that or somebody who is certainly as good or better than you. But the first guy in takes the pounding. So I think that what I would tell any young person is, well, several things. One, I would say that I always urge them to go to college. And there's nothing wrong with not doing it. I just think that the opportunities for a number of things are greater with a college degree. And then as part of that, even if you go to a smaller school, the chance to get involved in the student station and do a lot of things. We get kids now that come in and they're very well trained. I mean, they don't need a lot of training.
Mm-hmm.
They may need training on the equipment you have, but they can do all the stuff that you do because they've had that opportunity in college.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's important. I stress to people two things. One is don't major in broadcasting unless you're lucky enough to go to Syracuse or you have to go in a prime broadcast school. Syracuse has such a reputation.
Sure.
And is so strong nationally on the people they turn out, like Bob Costas, for example, that name does a lot to open doors. But I tell the people that I meet, it's not necessary to major in broadcasting. If you want to do it, that's up to you. But I said you're going to spend, unless you're lucky enough to get an academic scholarship somewhere, you're going to spend the same money as a guy sitting next to you in your elective classes who may well start at $40,000, $50,000, or $60,000. You'll be begging to get a 5-hour, 10-hour a week part-time job to start. So what I say is get involved with the student station. Find out how much you like it. You can learn a lot from that. Take electives in broadcasting, and even more so speech and diction, those types of things, because that's always important. And then, major in something that is I don't want to say crutch, but something else you like, but may well pave the way opportunity-wise and financially better than a start in broadcasting. It's one of the things that, and I don't try to discourage them because you should follow your dreams, but as you've seen in our industry too, it's been downsized so much. There would be at one time 3 or 4 radio stations that would cover high school football or basketball. I remember when I was in Johnstown, even in the early 70s, we would have to get to a site of a high school game at 4 o'clock to claim our space because there'd be 2 or 3 other stations coming, and it was first come, first served.
Well,
give me the seat, I'm there.
You mentioned that, and I was thinking back to probably the early 80s
Mm-hmm.
when Vestal would play UE, and there would be 3 or 4 local radio
Absolutely.
stations broadcasting. There'd be 10,000 people, and
Yeah, sure.
it's hard to believe.
And now, there's been so many cutbacks that those opportunities are much smaller. So what I say is, get your degree. If you can possibly do it, get your master's. That opens a whole lot of other doors too. And at the same time, pursue broadcasting. If you find, a couple of years out that you can't get the job, or that you can't make enough money to do whatever you want. It's not all about money. I firmly believe you should follow your dreams, but the harsh realism is that everybody looks at the successful people like Bob Costas or Rush Limbaugh, and to me it's like Major League Baseball. They look at Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, or whatever, the megastars. They forget the thousands of guys who are trying to make out a living either as a reserve player or in the minor leagues. So they see this and say, wow, I could be the next Rush Limbaugh. You can, but the odds are very slim.
Yeah.
You have a much greater odds game of making a substantial living as a computer analyst or something like that. So all I'm saying is get your money's worth in school. You can get so tied up in broadcasting and love it so much, you don't prepare yourself for anything else.
Well, and the other fact is that the number of jobs in broadcasting
Right.
is not nearly what it was 30, 40 years
Absolutely.
ago. And so the opportunities are just not there.
Sure, and I think I can't say because I've not been in the college classroom aside from just a few presentations that have made locally over the years, but I think that, and I hope that the professors are making that known to the kids.
Yeah.
Because when you're 17 or 18, what students have now is, I just think that they have so much more awareness. If my professor told me this is what you can start out and do and this and that, I had no other basis to go on. I believed him. And I don't think that the students now, I don't want to say are as naive, but as sheltered, if you want to put that, I think they're much more discerning into, okay, well, what are my odds now of doing this, and what do I have to do to actually get a job? We see a lot of young people who, they bust it. They go like crazy, and they'll do whatever they have to do as an intern, volunteer, and that's the way to go to get. So often a job comes up because you're there, you're around it.
Well,
Right?
you're
It's
an example of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I tell them, even if you're not going to get paid for a while, hang around, be a part of it, show that you want to do something. be involved, and you never know. You may get that one chance, and that's the chance. But if you're home and you're not doing it, you're not in the ballpark. You're not getting a chance.
I don't know how many people I've talked with in broadcast. It probably wasn't that many, but many people started out when they're 12, 13, 14 years old, hanging around the radio station. And one day, somebody gets sick. Somebody got an accident or something. Say, oh, gee, you know how to run the board? Oh, yeah, I can do that. And then, if you have experience, like you said, to know how to run a board, know how to do this stuff, then there might be an opportunity, along those.
And be willing, because one of the quick things to put you out of the running is when you come in with an agenda of, well, I'm a newscaster. I'm the sports guy. Okay, I mean, hopefully someday that's going to be what you are, but I unfortunately have talked to people who, and not so much now because, again, the scarcity of jobs, but at one time, this is, I want to be the midday guy, I want to do this, I want to do that, and they're very inflexible and yielding to that, and a lot of them aren't in the business these days because of that inflexibility. But I think you have to keep all options open just to get into the industry and the business, and then take it from there. And hopefully some hard work will open things up. But again, I always say get some experience in your college education in the radio station and take it from there. But have something else that you're qualified for too. That's a suggestion that I made.
What do you see in your future?
Hopefully just keep going. I really enjoy what I do. As I said, I love working with the university. They've been great to me. I love being around college athletics. I look a couple things. One, we all in our business, no matter what we do, sometimes get tired and weary. And when I get that way, I try to take a few minutes to go get a coffee somewhere. So I'm going to walk down the street and I'll look at people that I see in different jobs. And I'll realize that there's an electrician, I can't do that. There's a guy doing this, I can't do that. There's another guy doing this, I don't want to do that. And you realize how lucky you are to be in it and doing what you're doing, something you really care for. And I hope, I also enjoy, as you talked about, the hours sometimes are pretty long. It's and maybe it's just because I love college athletics so much, but you can be dragging coming in to do a game at 5:30, 6 o'clock. The game's at 7. You work 12 hours. You've been up 14, 15 hours before you ever start, and you're going, man, I'm beat. And then you get in front. You see the enthusiasm of the college kids. You see how excited they are to be playing that game that night. You hear the band. You see all this stuff going on, and it's just like an elixir. It's amazing because you say, this is what I want to do. Right. I don't care if I'm tired, and you're not tired then. It's like a rejuvenation, and it's just phenomenal. I think that's the great thing about athletics in particular, but certainly college athletics and high school athletics. The enthusiasm of the kids. Nobody's ever told them they can't be successful. I don't care who you play, and you see that, and you say, how can I do a bad job when these kids care that much? That's fun. So I hope to keep going.
I've known you for, 25 years or somewhere in that neighborhood. And I've never seen you not be up and enthused about everything. Have you always been that way, or did you pick that up somewhere along the line? If you ever have a bad day, I don't think you ever show it.
Well, I try not to, for a couple things. As you know from being on the air, nobody wants to tune in to somebody that says, man, I just don't feel well today. I got a headache, and I got to feel, because everybody that tunes in has their own problems, own issues, So I try to stay away from that. And sometimes you can't help it. When it's all said and done, nobody cares that I may have gotten 3 or 4 hours sleep. They have their own issues. And I one thing I always ask people, I said, hey, I don't sound tired, do I? Am I okay? Because I don't want to do that. I don't want to sound like I'm not enthusiastic, because it is a privilege to be able to do what we do. And we all get tired. There are times, every once in a while I just go home and say, I just got to go to bed. There's no more gas in the tank. But again, you try not to show it. And like I said, when you get around the elixir of athletics and the the kids being so excited, it just, I can't explain what it does, but I think anybody who's coached or been involved in that can get an idea of what I'm talking about. It's just, it's invigorating.
I just was thinking about something that you said to me maybe 20 years ago, Roger, that you love this business, but there's only one thing that you would refuse to do in broadcasting if you ever were asked to do it again.
I don't remember what that was.
You don't remember?
I don't.
You talked about filling in for Bill Flynn.
Oh!
And you said, I will never do another polka show.
Yes.
You want to tell that story?
Well, yes. Of course, Bill was and still is incredibly popular.
Oh, yeah.
And he has a following of very loyal people. And if Bill, and this goes back when he was with WNBF for years, and when I first came to town, and if Bill wasn't on, the audience wasn't happy.
Right.
It didn't matter. I mean, he deserved vacation or had a trip or who knows what. If he wasn't on, they weren't happy. So he had me, he had to be away for something. He said, I need you to do my polka show. Of course, I was a utility guy, but it didn't include that. I said, Bill, I don't know anything about polkas. I mean, I've heard a few, but I couldn't tell you any artist. And I said, that's not a good idea. I'm not going to do it. He said, I really need your help. He said, I'm going to be away. There's no one else to do it. I'll make it worth your while. I need you to do it. I said, okay. I said, but on one stipulation. I said, you have to pick the music and write down what I play. Okay, so I'm playing some songs, and he would have a segment where you would play several songs and then, backtrack him to say that was so and so and so and so, and of course I'm messing up names and everything. And I said a few things that the listeners didn't like, and they just went and they started, and we had a birthday segment, and we had no call screener. Of course, you're just putting it on the air.
Right.
Okay, time for birthdays. So, hey, what'd you say that for? I said, oh, okay, boom. Fred, who's this? Fred, how you doing? I can't believe you pronounced it that way. Boom. And they went crazy, and they hated me. And so I just stopped reading the stuff. I just kept playing the songs. But that started it. And you would get people that would call up and defend you. You didn't say that. I don't know what's wrong with that guy. What's wrong with him? And so we got no birthdays. Everybody was either they hated me or defended me because I was a young guy trying to fill in for this legend. So anyhow, Bill at the time had his own recording studio with an answering machine. He came back. The machine blew up. So many people called to complain about me. He came back and said, what did you do? I said, I just read what you left me. So since then I've done a few more, but I'm very careful what I say. Very careful.
Yeah. You do everything in broadcasting, and that was the one thing that
I was pounded on.
Yeah.
I was definitely not.
And you do everything so well, Roger, and I really appreciate your coming over.
My pleasure.
And sharing this information for the past lot of years here, and I wish you well.
Well, thank you. I hope we get to do it again.
You must remember this, a kiss is still a kiss, a sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still say I love you, on that you can rely. No matter what the future brings as time goes by.